Okay, so that's all that scribing and everything done. Quite a big job because obviously there was a lot of filler dust, various bits and pieces. So just before we get on with the glass work, we've got a few bits to get on. So what we can do now is we can place this underside part on, which goes on just like there, which is number A11. So if we just get some glue, we'll glue this as a separate. So we're just going to put a touch in the top, bit down each side. It's a nice snug fit. Now it's going to be a bit of a thing to do when you particularly like to, but I'm going to put the actual bomb rack in for the moment earlier than I normally would, I must admit, because it's one of those things that hangs down and hangs out and tends to get knocked off and things like that, but it's got a nice groove it all fits in, so I'm hoping it's all going to be okay. So the last thing we can get on here is the actual the guard, the front guard, which is going to go in here, and it has two little mounting brackets as well, but it sits in there quite nicely on its own already, which is quite a nice touch. So we'll just sit that there. Okay, so we've just got to get those mounting brackets, which are parts O27. The O screw is your little screw. Sorry, Q is your little screw. O is the one with the prop on. So we just nick these off, which are part 27 and 28. So we just check where we're cutting. Okay, 1, 2. Now I'm not worried about painting up inside here because it's going to be one, you're not going to really be able to see up there too great, and secondly I'm hoping it's going to be in that type of position where I can get in there afterwards and just give it a little blow straight up there with some dark. So there we go, we're just going to fit these in, and these are going to sit in just like so. That's one. And as I say, they fit in, they're going in just in here, look, there's one on that side, one on the other, just like that. And what we do, we're going to put a drop on the collar and let the capillary action pull itself all the way round. There we go, which has pulled itself all the way around, and then admittedly I'm doing this completely back to front. Let's pull you out a bit. Do it this way round, okay, and then hopefully this will sit on there just like that. That's right, and the little things underneath, you can see them in there, poke up and into the holes. So that's actually a lovely fit, and went in first time as well, so we just give it a touch more just to let the capillary action work its way round, and that's on there. Now the only last thing we've got is got this little hole back here, and we've got this little tiny fella here, which is part number J7. So we just need to clean up a tiny bit of flash. Okay, tiny little bit on there like that, and then hopefully this will just drop in. Okay, I'm not going to touch it too much, and I've got a bit of a file here just to sit it in and square up without touching it, because I don't want a fingerprint all over the place. But there we go, that one's in. So that's in and done as well. So I won't put it down quite yet because of this front guard, and we'll just make sure we're all lined up all inside, which we are, and looking very nice. So that's all that done. Let's sit that up, tiny bit more glue just around there, just to make that, and we've got that bottom guard. So there we go, we'll pop that upside down. We'll just let that dry a moment. We'll pop that out of the way, actually, keep that nice and safe. Now, okay, here's the fun part. Now, you probably read about this on various parts on the net, but for some reason, in their infinite wisdom, Hasegawa have made a bit of a faux pas on the clear parts. Now this is your sprue W, depending which way up where you've got it, which is this one here. Now it's very hard to see, but basically there is a bar, a window running just down in here. Now I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. It's going to be one of those things of just trying to, there we go. Now you see this bar here, this one running down there. Well, the thing is, we don't want it, because this particular version of the Warhawk doesn't have it. It's completely, this area here is a one piece there. So the thing is, when you look at the box art, it shows it with it on. The painting on the front of the box, I believe, just checking, shows it with it on, but the reality is it doesn't have it. So okay, two things you can do. Either just don't mask it and then you'll just have this little clear part here, or you can physically polish it off. Now it is erased, if you listen, it is raised, so we can take care of it. So what we're going to do, we're going to remove it from the sprue. I'll get some bits and pieces all together and I'll show you how to take rid of it, to get rid of it. Okay then, so here we go. Usual thing, before you start any type of sanding or polishing or whatever, get yourself a lump of blue tack or white tack or whatever you want to use. Okay, warm it up first, get it quite pliable, and all the rest of it, so give it a bit of a pull round. And say it doesn't matter if it's the blue or the white. You know, I know I usually use the white tack, which is the UH stuff, purely because it's not got any greasy marks on it and it's things like that. But for doing this type of work, it doesn't matter. Use whatever you like. Okay, so all we're going to do, we're going to roughly bend it up. Now obviously be careful, don't be ramming this in. That's why we warmed it up first, so it will sink in a little bit easier. But there we go. And all we've done, making sure obviously you're pushing right up to the sides. Okay, then take a bit more if needed, like here. Okay, so we've got this bit here, we've got a hole appearing at the back. All we're doing is we're trying to brace it, so when we're putting pressure on this side, it's not actually going to be there, you know, pushing in there. But if you do it first, even before you mask anything else, you'll get rid of the trouble of cracking canopies. Now I've cracked quite a few in my time before I started doing this. What have we got? A very old file. You know, this one's torn, it's worn down to the paper, very, very old. Polishing compound. Now you could use T-cut, toothpaste, car compound, whatever, as long as it's got a small amount of bite to it. And then you either use a very old, very fine, very warm sanding sponge, like I've got this one here, or you can actually buy, this is from Mastercasters, which is their Miracle Polishing Set, which is quite nice because the Crescent one here has actually got quite a bit of bite to it, but this one here, this one it's like velvet. It's so soft, and I'm sure it does do something, but honestly if you're going to be polishing away it takes a while. But this side is quite a nice side because it polishes in. So what we're going to do, we're going to mask up and protect the other areas before we get going with them. So what we're going to do, we're just going to, if we use a bit of 10mm tape, okay, and all we're going to do is literally just going to mask off down the bottom here, okay, and then we're just masking around the front like so, and then we're just going to mask off around the top so we don't end up taking off things we don't want to. Now it doesn't have to be an exact science this, because all we're doing is just making sure we don't overrun. You know, obviously we're not worried about coming around the front because we're never going to get around to this front part here. I'll bring you in a little bit, as you see. So all we've done, just like that, okay, and then say we're not worried really about the front. We'll put a little bit down there just for argument's sake. So there you go, there we have that area all masked up. Now, as I say, this here, it's literally grooving, it's a panel line into the plastic. So we just need to dig slightly into that to get rid of it. So we're just going to very, very lightly, not pushing down on the file, we're just letting the file do the work, and we're just trying to take off that top edge, if you like. And as you can see, it's filling up with filler dust. You probably can't from that range, but if you might be able to see here, get this to focus, come on camera, there we go. But we're getting a little bit of filler dust just down in here now as it's beginning to fill up. So we're just going to keep sanding away because we want all that to really go. But it is going to take a little bit of time to do this. And then just check with your finger, see how it's going. Okay. Because what we want to do is obviously we want to go down through it and then hopefully we'll stop before we go too far. And as we can see, just on this leading edge, this leading edge just here by my finger, we're through now, so we know we're not that far off. And as I say, that Tamiya tape here is beginning to buckle and wear out, which I'm okay with for the moment, but as soon as it gets a little bit further, we're going to have to replace it with something else. Now you could use a bit of Dymo tape to do it, but because it's quite thick, you won't get your file quite as far in. So we're just going to wet our finger, because it'll help clear out the compound. We can just run our finger along and you can feel exactly how far you've got to go. Now obviously you could use the more abrasive, perhaps this side of the file that you can see facing you. Yeah, that's quite strong. The trouble is, if you overcook it, that's some big scratches to try and get rid of. You're okay if you're quite confident and perhaps you've done one before, you'll know where you're at. But certainly for your first time of having a go at something like this, I wouldn't advise using anything too strong. Just take your time. You can always walk away from it and think, right, okay, I'll have a break now, come back, and so forth and so on. If I just use the other side just lightly, just to get on this edge. So that's that done. It's basically out now. So what we're going to do, we're going to pop along with our sanders here, wet them first slightly. Okay, and then we're just going to give it a bit of a buff to see what we've got. Okay, and there's still quite a bit of a groove there, so we're going to have to carry on at that. Okay, so then we can go back in with our Miracle sander, which is the Crescent one. And we can give it a good run over and we can see exactly what we've got and where we're to. So what we're going to do now on this particular side, we're just going to take the tape off to have a look to see how it is, how close we've got, various bits and pieces. So there, we're looking very, very good all over. So we're just going to give the area a buff over for the moment. Okay, I'm happy with that. So then what we'll do, we've got a few little bits down the bottom. We've still got a few little bits down the bottom to take care of. But what I'm going to do for demonstration purposes, I'll show you as a whole on one side. Okay, this is your normal sort of compound. Back in with your Miracle side, we're just going to pick it up. And if you've seen my other video, in a moment we should squeak. You can hear that then, we're starting to squeak. So then what we do, more compound on the top, onto our very, very fine one now. And there we go. So if we just, I won't undo the other side, but if I can just whip this off. don't know how well you can see that because obviously we've got bits of glue and all the rest of it over it, but that gives you an idea of how we've got that bar is now gone. As I say, there's bits of everything around there. So I'm going to do the other side and then we can get in there and get it dipped. Okay, so this has had now probably about sort of 15 minutes of polishing with the different sponges, literally with this one, the moon shaped one, which is quite a soft one, and then obviously with a firmer one like that. So that's all I've done there. So we're just going to give it a good clean off now, and then we can have a look. Now it's not going to be crystal clear, you're still going to get the odd little thing going on in there, but as you can see that canopy marker's gone now, and you could get away with it. It's covered in little bits of fleck and that, but as you can see it's just a little bit cloudy. It's got bits of towel on it, that's what you can see, but it's still just a little bit cloudy, but that bar has gone now on both sides. So what we need to do is get all of this lint and all this horrible stuff all off of it, and obviously the lint is off of the actual tissue paper itself, so we just need to get rid of that. And sometimes if you've got a tacky cloth, things like that works quite well. But all we do, dry it off, get yourself a clean piece of kitchen roll, okay, face down, just like that. Okay, so what we do, get yourself a container, literally I've just got an old, thinners container here, because it's wide. Take your future, neat, straight in, and just pour it straight into your container like that. Always put your lid on, because that way when you knock it over, as you always will, it won't go everywhere. Now okay, there's bubbles in here, which aren't so much of a problem, but if you can, just get a bit of kitchen roll and just get rid of the bubbles to the sides or up out of the way, because ideally if you can keep them out of the way, it'll make things a bit easier. Now this is going to be a bit tricky for you to see, so what I'm going to do, we just move the camera in a little bit and we sink you in. There we go, you can see a little bit better there. Okay, so grabbing your clear part where it doesn't matter. So here, obviously don't grab it where the actual clear part is. All we do is going to drop this straight in, okay, and submerge the entire thing and give it a roll round and make sure there's no air bubbles and anything stuck in it. Okay, we take it out and hold it on the sides and let it drip off for one. Okay, we do it like that, and then we go back in, straight back in, completely submerge it, lift it up onto the paper like that, okay, and just take it off and rest it down on your kitchen towel where obviously it's now absorbing. Now in the perfect world, you'll now cover this something over the top, leave it to one side and go and forget about it for 24 hours. Now this will work a lot quicker, I know it will, and you know, some of you say, oh, it doesn't need as long as that. The thing is, if you're going to mask it, sometimes you get, you know, paint sort of, you know, peels it and pulls on it. If you get 24 hours to totally dry, you'll be laughing. But the beauty with this is all those little misty bits, the little cracks, you know, little scratches in there, it will fill it beautifully. Then you can always come back later on in literally, you know, 24 hours time and re-dip it. Some people call it double dipping, where they'll give it 2 dips. Other people will obviously do it in 1. And then obviously with this, all we do, we get it in and then you just tip it, or decant it back into your bottle so you haven't lost any, and you're good to go next time. But it's quite important to cover that clear part up because you don't want anything to happen on it. And okay, I'll take a bit of a risk here, but if I show you, okay, and try and show you, okay, if we bring you in, if you see how clear this is now, it is totally crystal clear and nice and shiny. So we're just going to leave that, as I say, just off to one side, just to do its bit. Okay, and then to say, if you can, pop something over the top. So for that, I'm just going to use cotton bud thing. So that's just going to sit over the top, just like that, to keep that safe, dust free. It can still breathe a little bit. What I'll do is, I'll just actually make this quite clever. See, Blue Peter, eat your heart out, for those of you in the UK. Okay, there we go. That way that can still breathe and still do its bit, just like that. So we're going to go away, we're going to leave that now to totally go off. Okay, so there we go. This has been drying now for the last just over 12 hours. So we just take the top off and we can have a look. And there we go, lovely, dry, crystal clear. It's going to be a bit tricky, I know, for you guys to see this, but here we go. See, it's nice, crystal clear glass work, because what happens is the future, it coats it and just makes it, give it a crystal sort of clear type of finish. So we can get rid of, you can see it on the light there, on there, but there's no scratching, no nothing, and we've got rid of that bar, which is quite a tricky one in all honesty, because it's actually a recessed, it's a panel line that they've put in. It's not a raised bar that you just sand off, you actually have to go down and into the plastic. So that's going to fit. We bring our plane over here. Okay, that's going to sit just on the top, just like so, in here, and with a little bit of fitting, and it seems to fit very, very nice, but it was going to sit on there just like that. So obviously that's why we did the wiring, so we can see just down in there through these little bits just down through the side, but most of it's all going to be hidden because obviously this is all going to be sprayed over. So the big thing is masking now. Now this is where we say allow 24 hours before you mask it. If you mask over future, it might feel dry to the touch, but actually inside it will still be wet. When you mask it and you peel it off, you could run the risk of peeling, all sorts. So make sure you give it 24 hours to totally dry off. In the meantime, I'm doing this one. I've got a little bit of 10mm Tamiya tape, which funny enough is the right size for the windows. As it goes over, and then same thing, we hold it up to the light, have the light behind it, and we can see in there. So taking a medium to new type of blade on your thing, you just lay it in the panel line and just drag it round and let the blade do all the work and follow itself round. It's better to take your time and obviously, you know, just gently ease it round than it would be trying to actually physically cut your own way. Obviously the other way to do this is that you could just use something like a thinner tape, either cut down the Tamiya tape or use something like jammy tape, something like that, which is very small, and then that way you can just go around the outside and then with a bit of mask oil or something and just do the centres just to mask them up. So if I just do this one here for the back one, there again, funny way of doing it, you actually get two canopies. Now the theory behind the two canopies is at the front here there's a little nick. In the real thing it slides inside, obviously because of the way that the glass is made it has to be a little bit thicker, so obviously it has to have a square edge. So just one of those small confusing little things, but there we go. So we're just going to carry on and get this one all masked up and make our nice little bird cage effect. Okay, so we've got all the masking work done. As you can see, there's the bird cage done for the other one and the front windscreen. Use your thing just up to the light and do it like that. Now, I've sprayed green, the interior green, just in this rear part here. Now the thing is, you've got your two halves and they go on. There's a couple of little locating tabs down the bottom these sit on. Now, I'm not going to glue and put this in place. It's a nice tight fit. So I'm not worried about any gaps and things like that, but what I am worried about is filler dust or anything getting down onto the inside and not being able to get to it afterwards. So obviously if we was to glue it now, we unmask and find out you've got, I don't know, say a bit of filler dust, a bit of anything stuck down in that glass, we're not going to get it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blue tack it roughly in place like I do the others. So what we've got, obviously then the front part is going to click straight in here, and then we can glue, or whichever way you want to do, because we have futured this, and it will stop the fogging that you'll get with super glue. So if you are, you know, wanting to use a bit of super glue and do it that way, you could probably do it and get away with it. Would I? No, I won't try it, because obviously in the past we've had bad things happen. Now the thing is, you do get two canopies, as we were saying earlier. Now the beauty with this is, obviously I'm going to use the open canopy, which is this one, which has the little tabs just in the front here, or you can see that, whereas obviously this one doesn't. So then the beauty is this one will actually close up over the top with the other one, and there we go, and it all sits in there just like that. So we can spray that and not worry about this top part here because we're not going to use it. And then what we'll do is we'll replace it with our good one once we're done, and it will be in the open position just like this. But obviously to stop overspray getting in, we'll do it like that. So we'll do our usual way of doing it, of actually spraying on the black so it shows through the bars and the various bits and pieces. Or if you wanted to, obviously the internal colour does tend to be the green, so you can spray over the top with the green to do. Whichever way you do it, make sure you do it, because it is, you know, obviously the birdcage type. If we was just to do the camo pattern, you would be able to see daylight through it. So it is best, if you are going to do it with the green, give it a squirt with the green all over for this bar area, then go over it with black, and then obviously we'll use it for primer and various bits and pieces, and it'll give you the depth and it'll stop it being a little bit transparent of seeing through the clears. Okay, so that's that. We'll get this front part glued in a moment, and obviously we're just going to blue tack and hold the back parts, but for the moment it's holding itself. We've got the little bits all still to go on. We've got to open up the holes properly underneath. So I've just got here an old file with a bit of a point on it, so we can just twist that in. That's one. Okay, going in with number 2. And then this will come along, it's going to sit on the top, obviously once we've cleaned out the holes, just like that. And then we've got a few other little bits we're just going to put in. We're going to get this bottom part in as well for the wheel well, and things like that. So we're to the point where we're a whole, if you like. We're also going to get the spinner cap put together, and that's all ready to go on. And obviously the undercarriage doors and bits and pieces, we're going to mask up and get them all ready as well. So we're basically to the point where we can go ahead and get on with some priming. But as I say, we'll get these parts all in and all fixed on, and then we can get going with the paint. Okay, so as you can see, we've just sprayed the green work, as we were saying, so it shows through from the inside on the bars. So this is basically, we've got our overall shape together now. I was saying, you take the spinner prop, this isn't glued or made yet, it's actually just together to give us an idea. But it just shows you the size. It's a very impressive looking model. The clear parts all gone in very well. As I say, these rear ones aren't glued yet, that's why there's a gap at the top. What I'm going to do is make sure it's fine. I'm going to do them last, and then we'll seal up that little bit just at the very end where we're all happy that it's all together and everything's fine. So the next thing we're going to do is pre-shade this one. Basically we're going to run around everywhere. Now I know I've still got the wheel wells to do on the inside, but they're going to be quite easy to mask up because they're countersunk the way they are, so I'm going to do them last and just give them a blow in afterwards. So now we're going to get on with the pre-shading, and then we're going to paint all this bar work black on the top so it gives it some good depth. So when we're obviously, you've got your normal paint and you're looking through, you're not going to get any transparency showing through. So we're going to get it all done, so I'll get the airbrush all loaded up.